Boom! Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Samuel Davis III, and I am hosting this event today on this special day for some. Some call this evening All Hallows Eve. It has had several different names throughout history. It has been called many different things. When I was younger, I lived in Washington, D.C. They had the night before this night, we called it Devil's Night, where they go out and raise hell all throughout the city and town of Washington, D.C. And it was a time when I was too young to take advantage of it. And I really didn't do nothing but I heard the stories of all the burnings and the robbings and the lootings that were going on in Washington, D.C. back when I was younger. So being that this is Halloween and there's the air of fear in the air, and I was trying to go about and figure out what would be the great subject to talk about today. And I decided, I said to myself, you know what? Fear. Fear is the thing that I want to talk about today. What kind of fears do we have? How do I face my fears? How do you face your fears? And what do you do as a coping mechanism when you get afraid? Do you, like for me personally, I generally do not like talking out loud when I have a fear. I don't like feeding into it. I don't like speaking on it. Um, but this past year, I've adopted some new things into my life. I have accepted a new faith. I have just recently got funded for a add-on for my home, and I have an ADU, and that's a fear within itself. And I will admit that one right there. I have a new second mortgage. So yeah, there's a fear in that. But fear, and how do I go about handling it? And I will start off by, before I bring in my man Gordon, just talking a little bit about why I think fear is a big thing. I think it's big because it's how we handle things, how we talk about these things right now between us, and how we handle things. There might be a way that we might learn something from each other today. There might be a way in expressing what we talk about today, how we can get over it and maybe make it easier. Maybe you know, we can learn something that we can pass on generationally. We can learn something that we can pass on. As my wife and I, we are working on finances today. That has been a touchy subject for us, touch and go with us about certain things, because we're tweaking out who's going to cover this and who's going to cover that, how we're going to get this in here. And sometimes I don't want to have to pay for this if I got to do this, and vice versa. So those are those little fearful things. Overall, I'm in amazing condition. Life is going good. But yes, I do have fears. I have these little things that just bug me. I do not like speaking out on them, but today I'm going to make it an effort to speak out and talk about these things that do bother me, because this is a special episode. This is going to be a new start, and I have a higher level of confidence in who I am as a man, where I'm going spiritually in my life, and what I plan on doing, and the mark that I plan on leaving on this world. So let me start off with saying, first and foremost, yes, that new second is a fear. Not hard. I went through a couple of months of going through tweaking things and where I'm going to take this and pulling money from here and setting this up here, watching this and paying off these things and finalizing things. Finances has never really been a big thing for me, but because of the fact that I have my in-laws that have moved in with me, and I have a nephew that's coming in here as well, the responsibility falls on me a little bit more. And being responsible and being a good student and a good steward with my finances is very, very important for what I have planned here at my house. We call Davis South. Um, what I have to do. So sure, I think anybody can sit back there right now and throw off fear and say money and paying bills are big. But I want to back up a little bit and talk about some of the fears that I had previously in my previous employment. I worked in the prison system, and let me tell you, every day there was fear, every day. And I talk to some of my friends now, some of my coworkers that I worked with for the years that I did in the prison system, and we always have conversations. We laugh, we talk trash, but there's very few of them that will actually admit that they were afraid. Very few of them. Um, I think I took the job very serious, which you should, but because of the fact that I know what it takes to be a true professional in that corrections field, there are things that I had to do that I would never do, and I had to face on a daily basis. Telling people no, telling people to sit down, be quiet, whatever it is, when a person's just got off the street and he's just wild and he's got his family taken away from him and he's got bills to pay and he's wondering about his business partner and maybe his wife and kids, or his wife has ran off with, with his business partner, or just all these different things that these guys are going. You have to deal with these personalities, and when you get a whole bunch of them in one area, and you got to do breakfast, lunch, dinner, get laundry out, divvy out mail, help people go to medical call outs, all throughout these. There's a bunch of different things you got to do throughout the day. And you got to deal with this 1, 2, 3, or sometimes a group of individuals that don't give a care about what you're trying to do. Their whole objective is to mess up your day because they got nothing better to do. So that was a fear. That was a fear. And the interesting thing about that fear is I carried it in my body. And I did not like that. I found it out later on that I was carrying it in my body after going through therapy and things. But fear was a big, big thing. I sometimes wondered if I got paid well enough for the things that I was doing. But I also realized that as I was dedicated to what I was doing, it doesn't matter what they were paying me because I always get into what I do. So when I get into something, sometimes the dollar amount isn't what the issue is. It's the overall mission and where it goes towards the end that makes me say, okay, I hear people like, if you remember, what was that movie with Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, where he say, I'm getting too old for this. It was those kind of things that would hit me. And I'd be like, man, is it worth it for this money? But you know what? It really was, because ultimately, and even with what I'm doing now with my wife and I on our business in Bridge Visions, is working with the system impacted individuals. That fear, putting that aside, put me in a certain stage, a certain position with those individuals. And it really worked on my confidence as a man. Being now that I'm away from it, I can definitely admit it, like I've said before, and talk about a lot that those fears, they were real. They were real. And I hated to admit it, but I'll just tell you, it was real. So I'm going to bring in my man Gordon, and we're going to talk a little bit more about fear and find out some things about where he's at with some things in his life. And if he wants to release some things, Gordon, I would love it. If not, that's okay too. But this is the fear episode that I want to break out this year. So I want to bring you in, and man, welcome. What's going on there, brother Gordon?
Sam, what's happening?
How you doing, man? Talk to me about what you think
I'm
what I
good.
said. Talk to me. Hit me in the
Man,
mouth.
you know what? I appreciate your thoughts, your perspective, and all of that. I think it's clever to use fear on this day, right, as our topic. And I think that fear is a great topic for discussion in any setting, because it's one of those things that hopefully as a society we can make it more normal to be okay with talking about it, right? And like you said a minute ago regarding your manhood, and we're brought up to say maybe not be open enough to share our fears, or not be willing to let certain people know about our fears. And especially if you're in a group of men, whether you're at work or family or whatever it is, sometimes opening up about your fears can be something that it's a fear of its own, right? It's just scared us to be vulnerable, to say, yeah, this is the stuff that scares me, or this is what I'm worried about, or this is whatever the case. And so I think it's a great topic. It definitely needs to be more of a thing where it gets talked about so people can share things. I think some of the fears that I experience, I think so growing up, you're familiar with the neighborhood that I grew up out here in Oceanside, and in the valley.
There you go. Call it
Um,
out. Call it out, Gordon. Call
in
it
the
out.
valley, yeah, see, I got
Hello,
the
La
shirt
Raza.
too. In the late 80s, early 90s, it was a pretty it was a rough neighborhood, and obviously there's always rougher neighborhoods, right? And I'm not, trying to glorify it or anything, but it was a rough neighborhood. It was a neighborhood where, you had to be careful of the colors that you're wearing and things like that. And I think many times I was lucky because of my size. I'm taller and I'm a big guy compared to other people. And even back then in my age, comparing age to age, I was little bit bigger. So I think just my size kept me out of trouble, right? And so I was lucky because, I mean, potentially, when you're a kid, if you grow up in these neighborhoods, there's fighting, right? And so potentially I could hold my own, but I wasn't really technically a tough kid, right? I wasn't the kid that was, like trying to start stuff or getting ready to end stuff. Because sometimes it started without you starting it. And some people are eager to, jump into it and end it. And some people are just like, yeah, let it simmer down, let it do its thing. So I wasn't one of those guys, right? I was, like I said, I was lucky to be taller and bigger than everybody else my age. But I was also lucky to have the friends that I had that just knowing who I was friends with, caused people to say, you know what, let's not escalate this thing or whatever the case. And then get going into adulthood, or even like late teens. um I don't know, I'm not sure what kinds of fears I might have had then, but I think that um I don't know, like one of the things that I keep thinking about is the fear of like selling out. Like I've been somebody that has gotten to a point where I've been working on myself. I've been trying to grow as an individual, mentally, emotionally, physically, or physically maybe not grow, maybe shrink physically, but just trying to get to be a better version of myself. And when you really go after it and you really study what it takes to grow as an individual, it means change, right? And culturally speaking, I think, and even just growing up where I grew up and being, say coming up from a blue collar family or whatever, change is not something that people look at and say, let's go change, right? Change is something where it's frowned upon. It's like, oh, you've changed. I don't know you anymore. It's like, who are you trying to be? You think you're better than us, or whatever the case, right? And so I think, in my early, maybe not in my teens so much, but in my early 20s, as I'm kind of on my own in the world, I think fear of change was an issue where I was like, man, I don't want to sell out. I want to stay true to my roots, my culture, my whatever. Which, what is all of that, right? So that was one thing, and I think, um, even farther beyond that, fear of being uncomfortable, because when you grow, you're forced to do things you've never done before, and that's not comfortable, right? You get yourself in situations and rooms and circles of people that might be intimidating. Like I constantly find myself in circles of people where I'm like, I'm the only one in here that doesn't have a degree, or I'm the only one in here that income wise I'm not where I want to be, or I'm like always just kind of not feeling maybe worthy of being in the circles that I put my, and now it's like I actively put myself in those, but in the past it was I found myself in those circles, and now I'm like, oh, do I belong here? So there's a lot of fears, and I think now, more recently, one of the biggest fears for me right now is, my mom is not super healthy. And she's young, like I think she just turned 70. She's young, and it's like, besides being my biological mother, she's like my spiritual mother. She is my, like 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 I could talk to her about almost anything, right? And she raised me, and so now it's like she's not healthy. Is And part of it is physical, like she might not be with us much longer, I don't know. But another part of it is mental health, where like in on her side of the family, there's things like Alzheimer's and dementia. And so even if she's here physically, is she going to be here mentally? Am I going to be able to have the same conversations that I've always had with her? And so that's maybe more recent fear of mine, is that her health has been declining. So
Mm.
so that, yeah, I spit a lot out at you. I
Oh no,
apologize.
no,
But
no.
as you were talking, that's kind of what was running through my head. Like, how can I share? How can I look deep down and say these are some of the fears that I've been, working through, I guess.
Yeah, I was felt myself kind of getting emotional when you mentioned Alzheimer's and and dementia,
Mm,
because that's what I'm dealing with here in my household with my in-laws here.
yeah.
I mean, this last week or two is just it's getting progressively worse, and we're recognizing it. And then not only that, they're starting to recognizing it, and
Mm,
that's where the fear comes in, because you never know how you're going to act until certain things happen. In law enforcement, they see a dead body, or things like that. You never know how you're going to act. I've had people where I've trained them. They come in out of our institutional training and go through the academy, and they come back to the institution, after weeks of training and money spent and initiations and everything. Get on that unit at first day, and they get to being around people, and they don't come back. Do not
mm,
come back. And you're like,
mm,
whoa, we just went through all of that. It takes a certain type of person. There's a fear when you have to come to face these things. You gotta be up for that challenge, or you're
mm,
gonna just shrink. And some people, they try to hide. They don't want to embrace things. They don't want to get into the job. They don't fully embrace what their position is. They
mm,
rather take some of the benefits of that position, like I got a badge and I can get free food, or I can do certain things. But facing that fear of dealing with other individuals who do not see the way that you do, and don't really care
mm.
about who you are, what you say, or what you do, those kind of issues, those kind of situations, um, very, very fearful, very fearful. So
Mm.
I'm sorry, I'm sitting here and there's a phone over here ringing. That's my wife left the phone in the room and took off,
Okay.
and it's
You're,
ringing. Can you hear that?
I can't hear it. No, I didn't
Good.
know until you said anything. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, so yeah, with that being said, I think that my question to you, Gordon, do you, like, for instance, me, I don't like verbalizing. I like to, when something happens, it starts here in my mind, so I knock it out of my mind. The moment someone comes across
Mm,
my mind, like, man, this is going to happen. No, it's not. And I
mm,
turn my head and drop that real quick and keep. I have to sometimes literally stop and say it out underneath my breath. No, that's not happening. Oh, he's
yeah.
not following me. No, that guy's not gonna
Mm,
come out here and say nothing crazy to me. No, it's not gonna happen. I knock it out, because if I dwell on it anymore, then I get to start, all of a sudden I start to forgetting who I am, and forgetting the power that I walk into, and forgetting what I represent, and forgetting my family who stands behind me and who are depending on me. So
mm,
it's something that I always try to knock out. Um, there was something else I was going to think about when you mentioned fear that came to my mind, and it was obviously with the second mortgage popping up recently, and the other thing is fear of failure can
yeah.
be a big one. The
Yeah.
reason why this podcast right now has not been just gone live is because I have a fear. I got things, I keep saying there's a right time. I want to work some kinks out. I want to do certain things. Sometimes I doubt myself in that aspect of whether it's ready, and whether it's how they say it. Kelly says something like the soup's not ready until I say the soup is ready.
Mm,
you know, and
mm,
I'm kind of like right now, kind of hashing through things, how I'm going to start this thing off, how I'm going to end it, how I'm going to bring things in. I got different ideas of what I want to do. I'm starting with the podcast that we started with together, with lived experiences. Um,
mm,
I I like that kind of freestyle thing, but I want to kind of get in some of the topics that I want to talk about. And then the question is, how do you get about going into these topics? And is it my opinion that is really someone would come to pay attention to? Or is it best that it's just a roundtable conversation? Should it be something that we all discuss and then we all get different perspectives? Because that was the whole meaning of why we got together with this. Benji's not here today, but he was wanting to find a safe space so that guys can sit back and have these kind of conversations that are high-minded and that are personal, and that are very, very hit soft cores that we don't want others to know about. I have when you mentioned earlier being a big guy, being big guys, people think it's so easy being a big guy. There is so much to being a big guy. There's so many challenges being a big guy. You can walk into a room and intimidate people, sure, if that's what you want to do. But when you do that kind of stuff and you dress a certain way and you wear your clothes a certain way and you walk a certain way, there's somebody who wants to go higher up that hierarchy scale, and you are that step, my son. You will be that step so they can say, hey, look, I'm gonna knock that big dude down and watch this with one punch. There was many years ago when I was in the UK. My first wife was pregnant with my first child. We were walking down, I forgot where we were at, but we passed this pub and some glass broke. There's a whole bunch of, back in the day, we call them skinheads, that's what they were. The tight jeans, and they had these jackets on it, leather jackets that say GBH, which is grievous bodily harm. And they come busting out the thing, and we're walking by, and I kind of like, whoa, kind of got out the way. And the guy comes up and he goes, hey, he says, you're a big bloke, you are. Oh, you're a big bloke. And so I kind of stepped up, and my wife started backing away, and I said, hey, get over here, stand over here. I said, oh, I'm a big guy, huh? What's up? And he started coming at me. Then another one comes out. I'm like, oh, snap. Okay, so I'm in the Air Force. I got two guys coming out of a bar, just got through breaking glass. He's rubbing his chin and telling me how he just beat a guy up inside the pub. And I'm just like, and I'm looking, my wife is trying to walk away. I said, get over here. Hey, what's up, man? So I grabbed that dude real quick and pushed him up against the wall. And I said, what you got? So what you gonna do? And the other guy was like, oh, no, mate, I didn't mean it like that. And he kind of ran off. And man, I had to face my fear. Face my fear, and came out A-okay. And I had to tell my wife, don't you ever leave my side again. When I tell you, don't you ever do that. You stay right by my side when I come outside. We having these problems like this, So I say all this to say that fear is a big thing. And we got another guest in here. I'm going to bring him in right here. And it looks like we have Robin Shin in here. I don't know if you heard the conversation going on, but he's in here shaking up making his coffee in honor of his brother here. How you doing, Robin? You can hear us.
I tell you what, I got a lot of, I got at least 5,000 reasons why I'm doing pretty goddamn good today.
There you go. There you go. Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for listen, just real briefly, Robin, I'll just say, Robin and I, we had a financial transaction between us, and I was actually able to actually pay him back. So it's felt really good to get that monkey off of my back that was been there.
I hope you honored the terms.
Oh, come on now. Yes, I did. Yes, I'm not in a bind, and I'm in a good position right now. So,
okay.
So thank you. This is we were talking today, and I don't know if
you heard. Come right back if you are.
No, I'm good.
All right.
We were talking today. Our subject today is about fear. Being that today is Halloween, we were talking about fear and how we face it, how we handle different things. And I was given an incident. I don't know if you actually heard while you were in the green room, and that's something I need to ask. Did you hear us when we were talking when you first came in?
I heard you. Well, I heard you. I mean, I didn't know that we were having a deal today till I got up, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, well, I'll just jump in. So,
yeah. So good morning.
Yeah, because y'all agreed to it at the when I was asleep. So,
Right in the middle of the night.
right. So, you were telling a story about how you had your face your fear. You were in some kind of a physical altercation. But what exactly was your fear? Was your fear did you have a fear of hurting people?
Of getting stomped down in a downtown
Oh,
London somewhere, and I got a pregnant wife, we're out, walking around, some
oh, I see.
skinheads come running out, so I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had to take it straight on. And so, I mean, now speaking to a combat veteran,
Right.
I mean, you had to gain that eye of an eagle to shoot, fight, do whatever somewhere. Did you ever have a fear? And I'm not asking you to go into any detail that you don't need to or nor care to discuss, but did you ever have any fearful situation that the first time you did it, you never forgot it and you got over it? Or did you how do you handle fears?
Well, first thing I'd like to say about combat veterans is that you start to realize about combat is that there's, I don't know if there is no such thing, but I would say that true heroes are extremely rare, and true cowards are equally rare. Right? Everybody's fearful. Everybody gives into their fear on occasion, and everybody overcomes their fear on occasion. And we have these people who have done some. You hear these stories about these people that do incredible deeds and get all these, medals and shit like that. And those guys are exceedingly rare. And then people talk about cowards and stuff, that people that run and stuff. Those guys are exceedingly really rare. And we all have the capacity for heroism in us, and we all have the capacity for cowardice. And naturally, without fear, there is no courage, right? Because it's like, well, if you're not afraid of it, then you're not displaying any real courage. Like, if somebody came to fight me and that somebody was a 10-year-old kid, I ain't displaying any courage by not running away from the guy, right?
Right.
Right. Because I'm not afraid of him to begin with, right? So, overcoming fear is a skill that you have to practice, just like everything else. Playing the violin, talking to public speaking. So, the thing I'd like to say about fear is, yeah, we all have it. We all know what it looks like. We all know how it feels like. And the thing is that we spend a lot of time worrying about it, especially us as men, because we're expected to overcome our fears. And what I'm trying to say is, don't wait till you need it to practice having it. Right? The old saying, don't wait till you're thirsty to start digging a well. Do it now. And the way we overcome our fears is just like lifting weights, right? You start small, you start with small ones, and you get bigger and bigger. And then, as anybody who works out will tell you, the most important thing is not intensity, it's consistency.
Consistency. Why do you say consistency?
Well, because I can sit there and go, okay, I'm gonna overcome my fear. I'm gonna go on a freaking on a workshop on the weekend, and we're gonna do confidence courses and fall back on each other, and hold ropes courses and fucking overcome fears of heights and stuff like that. You're gonna come back all jazzed and you had a good time and all, but that's not consistency. That's intensity. 6 months down the road, you're still gonna be afraid of shit, right? And in the same way, the best analogy is lifting weights. You ain't always you start small, you do it every day, you work out every day, you have a plan, you follow the plan, you work out, and then you get stronger and stronger. And then there's still shit you can't lift. At the end of 20 years of lifting weights, there's still people stronger than you, and there's still shit that you can't lift. You just got to be stronger than you were yesterday. not stronger than the guy next to you, but stronger than you were yesterday. And it's that consistency of every day, you know, uh, some of the, you think some of the bravest men, are these guys with, medals and face down fire and stuff like that. You guys are fathers, and, you have the biggest responsibility on the planet in your hands when your children are born. And then you face up to those responsibilities every day, and you go in every day, and you put a roof over their head and food in their mouth, and you don't shy away from that. I don't know, that's a heroism of a completely different sort, because that is every goddamn day. That's not, when they talked about people doing heroic things, like, oh, I just didn't think, I just reacted, it was just instinctive, and everybody goes, oh, great, and the crowd claps, and everybody, and he's a fucking public, and he's a fucking guest speaker of, how he, and it's like, yeah, but, there's people that, and you think, well, of course, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? I mean, as Chris Rock said, you're supposed to take care of your kids, right? But the sad part, and the reason that joke is funny, is how many people don't fucking do it.
Right.
Right.
But that's not fear, though. That's not fear about manning up to responsibility.
No, it's not fear. It's not fear. But it is courage.
When you speak of that, I know I had several guys that I used to work with, law enforcement, not so much in the military, but that we would get into arguments about paying child support. We would get into guys that I would really, we would get into it. They would sit back there and get on me about paying child support. I was not making that much money at all when I got divorced with 3 daughters here in Southern California, getting $425 every 2 weeks at the time when I was a young man, paying mortgages. That's all I had left. Oh, it was rough. And, that was fear every week going in, and I started doing dangerous assignments because I could get the overtime pay, and I would do all these different things. And if I got hurt, then my family would get covered by my insurance, So there was a fear. That was a fear going in every day and taking those dangerous assignments and taking, transporting inmates across country and doing certain things that, what it took to get that extra money that I needed. And that was a lot of fear. And I was saying, is this worth it? Is it really, really worth it? And you know what I say now and what I feel like now, and I think we spoke on this earlier, Gordon, and I'd like for you to expound on this if you can, because I think you kind of did. Facing that fear, looking it in the face and going through it now I because that was such a fearful thing every day, continually, because I don't control people. I just control my unit, and I had to look at a certain way, but I had to step out of my comfort zone. And I had to say things. And I think we talked about this. I think in a study session, we're talking about when you get a position, I try to take that to the fullest level that I can for who I am as a man. I'm like, you gave me a badge. I'm not going to sit back and, sure, I might do it every once in a while. I might get the free donuts and the coffee that you can get at the donut place. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about, there are things that I did, for instance, that using letterheads to write letters of references for my friends. I'm Lieutenant Davis of blah, 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 blah. This, and it just, when I was in those positions, I was using that stuff and I was trying to help other individuals. So I say all this to say that now this has helped me, because it was a very, very big thing for me to sit back and consider changing my religion. It's a very big thing for me. And as I mentioned earlier, I am so happy now where I'm at, because it's given me an inner peace, and it's given me a little fire to go out and talk about something that is really, really important to me at this stage in my life. Whereas I was raised as a Christian, and it wasn't that I took it and accepted it for me. It was just, that was always there. But now that this religion now was me, this is a decision that I've made. The Baha'i faith is something that I chose to do. And it was something that came naturally. Thanks to you and our conversations. But there was a fear for me to sit back there and go, man, you know, Jesus Christ, he was the way, the truth, and the light, and the Bible, and King James, and all the stuff that I learned, and the people that I met, and the people that I sat back and prayed with. I'm not turning my back on them. I'm just a new creature, and I'm learning, and I'm becoming a better person. So I said a lot of hullabaloo just then, but
Mhm.
what's your take on that as far as growth through facing your fears?
Me or Shen?
You, Gordon.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I honestly, I really like Shen's analogy about muscle, because I think that everything is I think not just muscle, anything grows. You know, your self-worth, your confidence, your, you know, your identity and all that. And it does, it takes that consistent pushing it a little bit farther. It's like you stretching a muscle, and now the muscle can go a little bit farther, and now next time you use it to that extent, you know, it's growing, and and maybe the first few times it hurt, but after a while it doesn't hurt anymore, as long as you're consistently stretching it to that distance. And I think that's the same thing with our confidence, our identity, our growth, our all of that stuff, you know, mentally and spiritually, and also, you know, things like pride and ego. I think do the same thing, but obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but for me, pride and ego don't always work for you. Sometimes they work against you, but they grow in the same way. You push it, and it was said a little earlier about public speaking. Public speaking is something that I've been working on for almost 10 years now, and I say that because I in 2015 is the year that I look at as a turning point in my life. And prior to that, I mean, my hands would be dripping if I had to even just not even just public speaking, just talking to somebody in the elevator, talking to somebody standing next to you in line, talking to anybody that I didn't know was such a fearful thing for me.
I
And
have to stop you, Gordon.
yeah,
What
go ahead.
happened in 2015?
A few things happened in 2015. In 2015, um, so one of the things that happened in 2015 is that me and you know Patty, right?
Yeah.
A good friend of mine and I, we got together to start this youth project that we wanted to present and even implement into a neighborhood. It's just this youth empowerment project. We can call, we called it the Youth Empowerment Program, YEP. Yep. And to be able to do that, I had to reach out to people that I didn't necessarily know very well, but I knew that they were some of like the movers and shakers in our community, I guess you could say. And that in itself, just to reach out to them, was something that I was very fearful of, just because, you know, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to say about this program? They're already doing things. I'm the one that really hasn't stepped up and done anything for the community at that point. And so for this new guy to come in and say, I have this program that I think would really help young people, I want to share it with you. I want to see what you think, get your feedback, and see if this is something you'd be interested in working on together. That was fearful. But I did it, and I reached out to a bunch of people, and I even got connections of, like, you know, mutual friends, like people that people knew and things like that. I also met my current business partner and like financial advisor and just mentor in general. His name is Carlos Salgado. He's the CEO of Energy Financial. I met him in 2015, and that took me on a whole different path, because money is not just the number side of things. It's not just, you know, open this account and it's going to compound interest and do all of this stuff. It's also the, you know, am I really willing to invest? If I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make money, I could lose my money. You know, my habits on a daily basis. Am I going to stop buying those snacks? And am I going to, instead of doing this, I'm going to do this? And am I worthy of growing financially? And I was sharing with you earlier, selling out, you know, using your money for you and making it earn for you is not something that you do in my where I grew up in the worlds that I grew up in. And so
But would you consider that selling out? Investing your money like that? Would you consider that selling out in your way, in your mind, or
you
what?
know, so one of the things that I kind of developed, and I don't know that it was taught to me or if I picked it up unconsciously, was that idea, that old saying of money is the root of all evil. And in
Mm,
my head, I used to think that folks that made money, they were probably not good people. They probably, some of them, because most of them were of this complexion, so they were probably racist. They probably stepped on people to get promotions at their in their careers. They probably, they did shady side deals to be able to, get to. But really and honestly, if I'm being honest, or if I was being honest back then, I should say, I didn't know any of them personally. I was just being very judgmental because I came from nothing. I've never known, I could never say personally, I know this person and they are, say, a millionaire, or they are this, or they are that.
right.
And then once I did start to get to know some of them, they were not any of what I thought they were, right? It's like I think of that, one of my favorite all-time movies is Dances with Wolves. Have you guys seen? I'm sure you've
Oh,
seen it probably.
yeah.
There's a part in it where he's writing, I guess, in his diary, and he's like, the native people are not savages, they are not thieves and beggars, and he's coming to this realization that all those things he thought Native Americans were just stories that he was being told. And then once he actually met them, he held them higher than his own, Anglo, American white people that was who he was from, I guess, if you want to call it that. And so I just had a lot of negative thoughts around money. I had a negative relationship with money. I always struggled with money. My mom, who I was raised by, struggled with money. And so when I met my mentor Carlo, he was like, you know what, you got to change that, because it doesn't serve you, first of all, right? If you truly want abundance and wealth, you have to have a positive relationship with money, because you're not truly going to go after money if in the back of your mind or in deep in your soul you think it's going to turn you into this evil person that steps on others to get money and puts money ahead of human beings and humanity. Why would I even try? Why would I truly go after money if in the back of my mind I'm thinking it's going to change me? And just that word change on its own, just thinking change, So a lot of things happened in 2015 where I think one of the things, and I think I shared a little bit about it on previous recordings or podcasts with you guys, is that I think I made a shift from a victim mentality to a more proactive. I got to own up. If I have flaws, I got to own them. I got to say, I can't point fingers or blame. And it's not even pointing fingers like at people, it's pointing fingers at situation. If I'm not doing well, it's the economy. If the political system's not serving me, it's them. Or if
When did you get that attitude though? When did that? Was that after 2015? Was that more recently?
Yeah, no, 2015 is where I started to shift that.
Oh,
And
okay.
I started to say, I got to point at myself, and I got to say, even if somebody did something to me, do I wait for them to own up and apologize and make up for it? Or do I move forward with my life and just say,
Right.
you know what, it is what it is, and I can learn from it, or I can wait around for somebody else to apologize so that my feelings aren't hurt, so I can feel better about myself, So I started to shift, and it was uncomfortable, but it was what it was. And so now one of those things I was saying earlier is that public speaking, I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, and I'm still working on it, but I'm a lot better than at it that I used to be.
I was going back and I was thinking back when we did the first show we recorded with you, Premise, and I remember you
Yeah,
saying, "Oh man, I don't think I can do this." I don't.
with Dr. Jaime.
You
Yeah,
remember? Yeah, you remember
yeah,
how we did those a couple of shows, and it was like,
yeah.
Gordon, I think it's amazing because I did not realize how fearful it was for you then. And even though since that time myself, I went through Toastmasters since myself,
Yeah.
so it's the same thing for me. I want to switch it and throw us at you, Shin. Can you recall, without getting all deep and philosophical on us now, looking back on the life of Robin Shin, Can you recall a time where you actually faced your fears and made a change? Like Gordon mentioned 2015. Can you look back and say to yourself, let me see, what's a year? There was a good year that I had where this happened, and I never forget I made this change for the better. And when was it? And tell us about that.
I don't know if I can really point to it because there have been so many turning points in my life, and and to pick one would actually be to refute my earlier statement. It is not intensity but consistency, and it is the consistency. I have gone through points in my life where I thought a change had been made, like there was some huge turning point, right? And I'm like, oh, that's it, right? Oh, I'm different now. And then soon after, I start sliding back, and it's not that different. And I ain't that, I didn't change the way I thought I did or would have liked to think I did. But over the past, I would say 10 years since Avatar, probably Avatar was a big one. Avatar did not really change me. It put me at the starting point, and it wasn't really because of Avatar. I don't think. I mean, it could have. I mean, I guess it was because of Avatar, but not because of the tools necessarily. It was the experience of being an Avatar where everybody was around and everybody was trying to improve themselves and everybody was trying to make, and then I met you, Sam, and I talked a lot of shit. And over the years, I have had to sit there and go, well, I've been talking a lot of shit to Sam. I best start living up to it. And bit by bit, day by day, every day, right? I can show back behind you. There's a bookshelf full of, like half of one of the shelves is journals. That I've been journaling. Yeah. Journals. I've been journaling, and my journal. When I do journaling, it's not just like dear diary, I went to fucking Safeway today, right? Every day there's a reflection, and there's a plan, and then there's like, okay, well, I need to fix this, and that didn't work out. I'm going to spend the next 5 days working on public speaking or whatever. Pick a subject, and I'm say, okay, over the next 5 days, even 3 days. Sometimes I call them sprints, right? 3-day sprint, 5-day sprint. Like for you, Gordon, you're like, oh, you're still having trouble with public speaking. Why don't you spend the next 3 days working on that? Like really hard. Like just freaking just pick a challenge at the end of the 3 days, and like a way to measure it. Like SMART goals, right? And pick a 3-day SMART goal for public speaking. And then just do it again, next year. But I mean, keep working on it consistently. But every once in a while, just take a really big punch at it, right?
Well, let me ask you this: when did you start journaling? Because I seen your journals, and I remember we discussed that maybe a year or two back. There were some journals for you now. So I remember the writing and how the detail you're doing. It was like, whoa. So
the journals is it's one of my superpowers. Is a journal. Right. And when you think about your super, I'm like, what? My journals are, they are such a helpful transformational tool. It's like a crowbar for fucking personal development.
So let me ask you this real quick, Gordon. Do you journal? Have you ever journaled before?
I use technology. So like I have a million notes on my phone where a thought comes, and it's not as well structured as Shen is describing. But if thoughts come, then I start putting them in there, and I start putting thoughts in that. I've tried, like there's apps for journaling, but I guess the way that I look at it doesn't fit the way the app is set up. And instead of messing with all the structure in any particular app, I've tried a few. I just put in my notes, and I've got a bunch of notes on my phone that thoughts that come up, ideas.
I would highly recommend.
My question would be, with those notes that you've taken, have you ever went back in and reflected on them, looked at them, listened to them?
A little bit, yeah. And that's why I use my phone, because I can actually search versus trying to find the right book in the notebook. And also, I mean, like, as you know, I have my tablet where I write because there's something about writing versus like a keyboard, right?
Yeah.
And so like with my tablet, I can actually, it's actually my handwriting versus typing it in. I don't know if you know, like something
Well,
like this. It's
let
actually
me
handwriting.
let
And
me
so
tell you
there's,
something. There's
Mhm.
there's there's actual research that shows, actual science research that shows that when you type on a keyboard or dictate, as opposed to handwriting on paper media, right? That there is a difference in the way your brain processes the information. It's
Mm,
processed in a different part of your brain, and there is a difference.
mm,
Um, and and so I highly recommend that you write on paper media,
mm,
on paper,
mm,
and I highly recommend that you and I get together soon this week, and I'll show you how I journal, and let it turn into your own superpower, right? Because it's crazy, right? It
mm,
has been extremely transformational. But you also asked, like, were there pivotal moments? And I would say for me, the pivotal moments were not something like, oh yeah, that was a breakthrough. The pivotal moments for me are generally moments or times when I realize how deficient I am in something. Like, oh man, I thought I was cool and I done fucked up. And that's not an isolated incident. This is the third time this year. What the fuck? I'm an asshole. That's got to change, right? And I would say those are usually generally the times.
mm. You're muted, Sam, I think.
You're muted, Sam.
Sorry about that. Yeah, these are my journals. I go to Dollar Tree and grab me a bunch of these, and I just start filling them up. And like with drone shots and angles and concepts and just start throwing it out there. And then later on, I go back and read. I said, man, I wrote this 6 months ago. Wow. What I like about hearing from you, Shin, because it seems to me with what you have been doing with your journaling has allowed you to tweak who you are, your persona along the way. When you start having problems, you're already taking notes about it and you're already tweaking and changing. Okay, this morning I'm gonna change the coffee recipe here, and I'm gonna do this. You're tweaking, and if you go back to those journals, I'm sure you'll start seeing there's subtle changes in your whole mentality. So that right there, honestly, just now has almost inspired me even more to get more in detail with my writing, because that Avatar time, yeah, I remember that was the first time I've heard from Kelly all the time, journal. I'm kind of like, yeah, right. I'm not gonna journal none of this stuff. But
Right.
after I did, and I went back one day and I found my note, my journal, and I started reading back. I said, whoa, there are things that I wrote that I said I was going to take care of. And by the time that year rolled around, I looked back at that book again and I'm like, man, I did that. I did this. I did that.
Mm,
Whoa, I'm ready for this next step. I'm ready for the next step. And that's where I'm at right now. And I say that because the next step for me when I talk about fear is being present, because we got about 10 minutes here. So I'm going to kind of close it out, but I want to, just say a couple things, because for me, that fear is I look at that fear and I tweak. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought right now. Oh, I had that great concept. It was getting over that fear of mine. I lost it. I can't think of it right now. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I was going to try to tie in where that journaling has changed and where it is for me as stepping out as a man right now, and crossing over in different areas that I have never stepped out in before. And I will say this, we were having a session the other day, Gordon, and I brought up racism, and I used to never do that. Never do that, because it's just a bunch of hooey to even bring it up and talk about it. But what I end up doing is sometimes I sit back and I'll be quiet about certain things because that's what's on my mind. And I won't even say racism, I'll just call it white supremacy, because that circumvents everything for me. That's for me. and I sit back and I don't say nothing, and I get mad because I didn't say nothing. Now I find myself being that person that when there's ever an opportunity for someone of another nationality to learn something, maybe I'm that guy that's got to pass it on to him. And he might not get it the way he wants it, or he might not get it from the person he expected to hear it from, or he might not even expect it to get it that day. But if I'm present and we're having an open conversation, I'm bringing up my issues just as much as he brings up his issues. Just as much as he has pride in who he is as a man, I'm proud about what I've come from and where I'm going. But I stay present, and staying present is where the fear is at. Because right now I got a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of shit. A new mortgage, mom and dad with the memory care issues. There's thoughts about making budget for getting up this second floor that's going to be going up in here, and you know what? I thought when I was going to get my house upgraded, I thought, the neighborhood, when I saw people get stuff fixed in their neighborhood, or they're getting a roof done, or somebody else go over the roof, say, hey, talk to them about their roof, what they did, where they got it from, pricing it. I'm excited because they're excited. They're getting a new roof. Hey, this guy's getting his pool redone. Oh, you got a new car? Let me check your car out. I'd love to do that and go talk to the neighbors that I do know. I come to find out that, when I started going over my neighbors, because with what I'm doing in my home, I'm just reaching out, being a neighbor. I'm getting fences done. I told them I'm paying for fences on both sides because mine has been so long. I'm taking care of the fences. Go to my neighbors, just to kind of let them know what my plans are. I'm going to put up a new fence between us, and I'm going to offer you a free fence. I can replace it, privacy vinyl fence, just that one gate, just between me and you. Oh, went to both sides and asked them. My one neighbor, he's like, yeah, heck yeah, man. What, 6 to 8 feet? How tall, man? Privacy, vinyl, man. Yeah, I want it. I'm like, yes, okay, cool. The other neighbor, well, before you do it, can you talk to me and show me? And I'm sitting back and I'm just like, ain't this something? Ain't this something? I'm trying my best to hold my mouth, and I just like, okay, I'll come meet you over here. And this neighbor's explaining to me what I did, where it's going to be at, blah, blah, blah. And it was nothing what I'm planning on doing. I'm not even putting it in this area where she thought, oh, then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Back in my mind, I'm like, I don't give a damn what you got to worry about. I'm being nice. I'm offering you a free fence. And if you don't tell me by Thursday, I'm letting you go. You can have your raggedy wood thing. I'm just being neighborly and trying to be nice. And it's frustrating sometimes because I thought people were happy. I thought people would be happy generally like I am for them. And I come to find out there's a lot of people who are hurt. They're angry. They are toxic, and they are mad. And they don't want to see you do better than them. So I have learned with this, just because it was only my neighbors I talked to about this, and I mentioned to you guys that I was mentioning doing an upgrade to my home, but I am not going to tell nobody nothing. They're just going to see it. And it's something that, when you see it and you make a change in your neighborhood, the dynamic of the homes, because what I'm doing is going to be pretty drastic. There are people who don't feel the same way that you feel about things, and that hurts. That hurts, man. So, yeah. Any comments on that, guys? I kind of drifted a little bit, but any comments?
Well, I think one of the biggest things to talk about when you want to sit there and describe fear is you kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit when you're talking about being present. Whenever you're afraid, you're not being present. There is a concern for the future. What may happen tomorrow, what may happen in the next 10 seconds, right? I'm afraid I'm going to get punched in the face. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my life. You're living in the future. And so you're not really being present, right? And that's why most organizations that have these things where they start to do meditations and stuff like that, whether it be Zen meditation or even any kind of religious meditations, you're supposed to be present. You're talking about now. You're not talking about the future, because the future is unknown. And I will say one thing that kind of hit me, something, I'll comment a little bit on what you just said, Sam, is that about the difference between the two neighbors, is that You know, they say that everybody you meet is fighting some battle that you don't know nothing about, that you don't know shit about, right? And so, you know, your kindness, you know, is a way of living in the present for that person, and giving that person the space to catch up, right? Because once you explained everything, right, she was okay with it, right? Even though in the very beginning there's the whole, well, before you do that, right, kind of shit, right? Um, but you know, it was like based on a misunderstanding on her part, right? She didn't know where you were putting the fence. She didn't understand that, and so she's fighting a battle that you don't know anything about, right? You don't know how many times she's been raped when she was 14, right? You know, you don't know, you don't shit about it. So, um, so there's that. And then the final thing I'd like to say about journals is that it refutes what I just said, because a lot of times people talk about what I wrote in my journal, what I did, what I did, what I did, and we all think about the journal as being, you know, a written chronicle of what happened. But the journal is not about the past. The journal is about the future, and the future should be put on paper, not kept in your head. And that's, you know, that's all I got to say about that. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that stood out to me. Sam, you were talking about going back into your journal and being able to celebrate accomplishments. That, you know, one of the things that I've, I guess, had experience with in my life is that um, sometimes others will recognize my growth or my accomplishment, and I won't until I can kind of step outside of myself and say, you know what, you have done this, or you have done that, you've overcome this, or you've overcome that. And so I think that the way you explained it in a journal can be a good way to I guess have a more honest moment with yourself, right? Because if you're I guess if you're talking about things that you've done or been able to get past or get I guess overcome, then sometimes you don't maybe remember that until you can go back in there and say, oh, you know what? This is what I was dealing with. It's not so much a challenge anymore, or whatever the case. And the other thing that stood out to me is Shen talking about being very present, because earlier in at the beginning of this recording, as we were talking about different things that we were fearful of, and Sam, you were talking about your experience in London in front of that bar or the pub. Oftentimes those kinds of experiences put us in a fight or flight mode, right? And we have to decide in a split moment, are we going to run away from this? And it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be, you know, getting ready to jump on stage and talk to people, or it can be getting ready to, you know, say buy a house, or getting ready to make this large investment, or whatever the case. In that moment, leading up to it, before I get into the moment, but leading up to it, you kind of, you're planning and you're organizing, but that moment is never exactly what you plan for, especially if it's something you've never done before, right? And I think it was a Mike Tyson quote that says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? It's that moment where everything that you've done will either cause you to lean into the challenge, or maybe back up and be a little fearful, or wanting to run instead of facing that challenge. And so those are some of the things that I was thinking about as you guys were talking, that I think stood out to me.
Awesome. The one thing I want to say, because I kind of
I
got
like
back to
that
what I was
stuff.
going to say earlier, was Shin, you wrote about, you said that writing in a journal is the future, and I kind of, for me, it's the present for me. For me, writing in a journal right now was what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to go this. I want to do this. The present is, I got to live this now. Now that I wrote it down, I got to live. And 2 weeks later or a week later, I go back and I reflect. I did it. I actually did it. Wow. That's when I can reflect on it. And that's when it hits me. Journaling is living in the present, setting goals for the future for me. I don't may or may not cross those goals, but that's that fear. There's something in here. There's a lot of fear in this journal. There's a lot of fear that I'm writing down here, because there are things and goals that I want to do. There are things, there are weight goals and financial goals and automotive goals that I'm writing down that that I want to reach these goals. And then when I reach them, bam, I'm so elated that I've made it. So that's how that is for me. I hope you two guys get together about journaling, because it has made a big thing for me. I used to think it was one of those weirdo things that women do when they get crystals and they sit out in the moon and they make beef jerky out in Joshua Tree somewhere and they're doing all tarot cards and all that. That's what I used to think it was, but it's not. And it really is something that helps me focus. So I hope that this conversation we had helps you get over fear issues. I hope that you learned something from this, something that you can share with each other. And I thank you all for being here today with us as we end this recording today on Halloween, All Hallows Eve. I hope you guys don't go out and get too much candy. I still got some dental work I got to take care of that I will be taking care of soon. But guys, thank you for doing another one, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good.